Under the orders I signed today, we will also be designating the cartels as foreign terrorist organizations.
Just 6 days before President Trump signed that executive order, one of Mexico's most notorious narco lords, El Mini Lic, was arrested in Virginia. This guy is an arch-enemy of the El Chapo Guzmán brothers, and it is believed that they sold him out to the US authorities to get their revenge on him. But as we have seen many times before, this could end up setting off a chain of chaotic events that would have devastating consequences for people on both sides of the border. El Mini Lic wasn't like the average Mexican cartel member who was either forced into the cartel or joined because they were born into poverty and had no other means of livelihood. No, Mini Lic was born into power and privilege. His father, Damaso Lopez Núñez, known as El Licenciado, was one of El Chapo Guzmán's most trusted allies. Their relationship wasn't just a boss and employee relationship. It was a bond built on loyalty, shared ambitions, and of course, bloodshed. El Licenciado played a key role in expanding the Sinaloa cartel's empire, and naturally, his son was brought into the world of violence his father had built. So, growing up, Mini Lic wasn't living the normal childhood of an average Mexican child because his future was already carved out for him as a cartel prince. And by the time he was old enough to step into the family business, he already had every connection and influence he needed to flourish. Things were going smoothly for the Lopez family, while El Chapo Guzmán was still in charge. But as you can imagine, the cartel world is a game of thrones. Everyone wants the crown, and betrayal is just a part of the game. When El Chapo was arrested in 2016, everything began to change. Two of his sons, known as Los Chapitos, Iván Archibaldo Guzmán and Alfredo Guzmán, stepped in to take over the family empire. At first, they worked closely with Mini Lic and his father. After all, they were family in the cartel sense, and El Licenciado had been one of their father's most loyal men. But things quickly turned sour, and you know why? Power and greed. Mini Lic and his father had their own ambitions for the cartel. They weren't content with just following orders from the Guzmán brothers. And let's be honest, Los Chapitos weren't exactly the type to willingly share power. So, their relationship with the Lopez family became hostile. The Guzmán brothers suspected that the Lopez family might be planning something behind their backs. And then came the 2016 kidnapping. The Guzmán brothers were abducted by a rival cartel, the Beltran Leyva organization. But while they were eventually released, they became more paranoid. The Guzmán brothers began to question everyone's loyalty, including Mini Lic and his father. By 2017, the cracks in their relationship had turned into an open feud. That same year, El Licenciado was arrested in Mexico City, leaving Mini Lic exposed and vulnerable. Without his father to protect him, Mini Lic became an easy target because the Guzmán brothers saw him as a direct threat to their control.
Se dice que lo cercaron en Mexicali, Baja California, en una zona de influencia de El Mayo Zambada, a tal grado que decidió huir a Estados Unidos, donde fue detenido. 5 meses después, Damaso López Serrano, el Mini Lic, se declaró culpable de narcotráfico. El Mini Lic es hijo de Damaso López Núñez, el licenciado, el hombre que ayudó a Joaquín Guzmán a fugarse del penal de Puente Grande, Jalisco, en enero de 2001. Y que durante años se convirtió en su compadre, operador financiero y una de las cabezas del cártel de Sinaloa.
As the feud escalated, Mini Lic's life turned into a living nightmare. Trust in the cartel world is rare, but betrayal is inevitable. Mini Lic found himself with no allies, no protection, and a massive target on his back. And this is where his rise took a sharp turn, downward. With nowhere to hide and death lurking around every corner, Mini Lic made a choice that would change everything. He surrendered to US authorities in 2017. This, should I say, smart move, was for his survival because he knew that staying in Mexico meant certain death, especially with Los Chapitos hunting him down. So, Mini Lic flipped sides and became one of the highest-ranking cartel members ever to turn himself in voluntarily.
Se dice que el narcotraficante de 29 años habría delatado a los hijos del Chapo, a hijos de Ismael El Mayo Zambada y a más de 125 miembros del cártel de Sinaloa.
This was a slap on the cartel's face and a shock to the world of Mexican organized crime. You see, Mini Lic wasn't just a low-level cartel member, and his decision to cooperate with US authorities was seen as the ultimate betrayal. And you know the thing about the cartel world. Betrayals come with brutal consequences, and no matter how long it takes, Mini Lic was going to face the consequences of his actions.
Damaso López Serrano, alias el Mini Lic, salió de prisión luego de que una juez de la Corte del Distrito Sur de California determinó que si bien este personaje cometió daños como miembro del cártel de Sinaloa, operó de manera importante con las autoridades de Estados Unidos. El viernes 16 de septiembre, López Serrano compareció en audiencia para recibir sentencia por conspiración para distribuir anfetamina, heroína y cocaína, cargos por los que en 2018 se declaró culpable.
Once in U.S. custody, Mini Lic became an invaluable asset to law enforcement. He provided detailed information about the inner workings of the Sinaloa cartel, the structure, the supply chains, and the leadership dynamics. He even shared critical details about the cartel's growing involvement in fentanyl production, which had become one of their most lucrative operations. Mini Lic revealed that the cartel's expansion into the fentanyl business was by no means an accident. According to him, El Chapo had personally overseen the cartel's entry into the synthetic drug market. In 2014, the Sinaloa cartel began importing precursor chemicals from China and experimenting with fentanyl production. It was a bold move, but it paid off. The profit margins were massive, and the drug's potency made it a hit in the US market. This kind of information was a goldmine for US authorities. It gave them a clearer picture of how the cartel operated and how they could dismantle its networks. Mini Lic's knowledge of these operations made him an invaluable asset to US authorities and an even bigger target for the cartel. But despite the risks, Mini Lic continued to work with US authorities, revealing even more about the cartel's operations. His cooperation led to several high-profile arrests and disrupted key parts of the cartel's fentanyl supply chain. And as you can imagine, this didn't sit well with the Guzmán brothers and the rest of the Sinaloa cartel. His testimony had the potential to bring down entire factions within the cartel. And for Los Chapitos, who were already dealing with rivalries and internal conflicts, this was the last thing they needed. So, they were ready to do whatever it took to silence El Mini Lic forever. In December 2024, Damaso Lopez Serrano, known as El Mini Lic, was arrested in Virginia. On the surface, it seemed like another high-profile capture by US authorities targeting the fentanyl trade. But beneath the headlines, there are strong indications that Los Chapitos played a key role in making this happen.
Damaso López Serrano, el Mini Lic, fue reprendido por autoridades estadounidenses en Virginia bajo los cargos de tráfico de fentanilo. El periodista Luis Chaparro informó en sus redes sociales que fuente del FBI estadounidense le acaban de confirmar sobre la detención de López Serrano, quien se encontraba en libertad condicional después de pasar casi 5 años preso en ese país. Damaso López Serrano se entregó a las autoridades estadounidenses en 2017, después de que su padre, Damaso López Núñez, fue detenido en la colonia Anzures de la Ciudad de México por tráfico de drogas para el cártel de Sinaloa.
For years, Mini Lic had been a thorn in Los Chapitos' side. After cooperating with U.S. law enforcement in 2017, he revealed sensitive details about the Sinaloa cartel's operations, alliances, and leadership structure. He even exposed how the cartel entered the fentanyl market, revealing El Chapo's role in its early production and supply networks. Following his release from prison in 2022, Mini Lic didn't stay quiet. He gave interviews accusing Los Chapitos of betrayal and greed. For cartel leaders like Los Chapitos, public criticism is a direct challenge to their power and a danger to their control over their allies. There's credible speculation that they leaked information about Mini Lic's activities to US authorities. This tactic isn't uncommon in the cartel world. Leaders often feed intelligence to law enforcement to eliminate rivals or settle scores while keeping their own hands clean. By tipping off authorities about Mini Lic's alleged involvement in fentanyl trafficking, Los Chapitos could ensure his removal without risking direct retaliation. Reports of possible torture during Mini Lic's arrest have added to these suspicions. While the exact details remain unclear, some believe it reflects the extent of influence Los Chapitos may have had in operation.
Entonces, te digo, una llamada de una mujer fue lo que me salvó la vida. Y porque ya iba para Con Edgar yo, ya estaba a 3 cuadras de Con Edgar. Y gracias a Dios la llamada de esa mujer me salvó la vida y me fui a otro lugar. Y en lo que me metí a bañar, Edgar se arrancó a su destino y en eso pasó eso. Cuando salgo a bañarme ya lo habían matado.
Their goal wasn't just to see him behind bars, it was to make an example of him. In the cartel world, survival depends on maintaining control, and eliminating Mini Lic was a message to anyone who might consider betrayal. For Los Chapitos, removing Mini Lic also helped stabilize their position within the cartel. The Sinaloa cartel has faced internal power struggles for years, with rival factions challenging their dominance. So, by orchestrating the arrest of someone as connected and vocal as Mini Lic, they reinforced their authority and sent a strong message to their enemies. While this gives the cartel an upper hand, it can also backfire with some brutal consequences for the people on both sides of the border. Mini Lic's arrest in Virginia was not an isolated event. It was a pivotal moment in a much larger war, one that goes beyond a single man. His capture signaled the collision of two powerful forces: the unrelenting violence of Mexico's cartel wars and the US's increasingly aggressive campaign against fentanyl trafficking. And at the center of it all is the ongoing chaos within the Sinaloa cartel itself. Over the last decade, fentanyl has transformed the drug trade. Unlike coke or meth, fentanyl is a synthetic opioid that's cheap to produce, incredibly potent, and devastatingly deadly. Just a few milligrams can cause an overdose, and the US has seen overdose deaths skyrocket because of this drug. So, it's not surprising that the Sinaloa cartel, always looking for ways to dominate the market, became one of the biggest players in fentanyl production and distribution. Now, Mini Lic wasn't just a minor player in the cartel's fentanyl operations. He was there from the beginning. He revealed that El Chapo himself made the decision to push the cartel into the fentanyl market after seeing the enormous profit potential. By 2014, the cartel had figured out how to smuggle precursor chemicals from China and turn them into massive quantities of fentanyl, which was then shipped to the US. For US authorities, stopping this pipeline has become a top priority. Mini Lic's cooperation in 2017 gave them valuable insights into how the cartel operates. But even after his initial arrest, the fentanyl trade continued to expand. By 2024, with overdose deaths dominating headlines, the US was under intense pressure to crack down harder on the cartels. This brings us again to Mini Lic's arrest in December 2024. On the surface, it seemed like a win for US law enforcement, a high-profile figure in the fentanyl trade taken off the streets. But when you look deeper, the arrest feels like just one move in a much larger strategy. The US is ramping up its efforts to dismantle the cartel's fentanyl operations, and targeting someone like Mini Lic sends a strong message to other cartel members: no one is untouchable. The timing of this arrest is also very politically significant. Former President Donald Trump, who has been vocal about taking a hard line against the cartels, was just weeks away from his inauguration as the 47th President of the United States when that arrest happened. During his previous term, Trump proposed labeling Mexican cartels as terrorist organizations, which would allow the US to take even more aggressive action against them. And just a few hours after his inauguration, on January 20th, 2025, President Trump signed the executive order.
Under the orders I signed today, we will also be designating the cartels as foreign terrorist organizations.
So, Mini Lic's arrest fits neatly into President Trump's moves, showing his supporters that the US is taking the fight to the cartels. Meanwhile, while the US is focused on fentanyl, the Sinaloa cartel is dealing with its own internal turmoil. Mini Lic's removal from the picture leaves behind a power vacuum, and power vacuums in the cartel world are dangerous. The Sinaloa cartel has already been fractured by infighting, with Los Chapitos battling rivals like the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, CJNG, and smaller factions like La Mayiza. Mini Lic's arrest could destabilize things even further, creating new opportunities for violence and betrayal. And then there's the issue of alliances. In the cartel world, alliances are fragile at best. Mini Lic's arrest could reignite old tensions between Los Chapitos and other factions within the Sinaloa cartel. Even weakened groups, like the Damaso clique, might see this as a chance to strike back. After all, Los Chapitos' dominance isn't as secure as it seems. With Mini Lic out of the way, rivals might try to exploit the situation to gain more control. But the fallout from Mini Lic's arrest doesn't stop in Mexico. The Sinaloa cartel's operations extend far beyond its borders, and the violence that fuels its empire has a way of spilling over into other countries. The US is already feeling the effects of the cartel wars, from the fentanyl crisis to the increasing presence of cartel members on American soil. For Los Chapitos, Mini Lic's arrest might feel like a victory, but it's also a reminder of just how precarious their position is. Every arrest, every informant, and every betrayal brings law enforcement one step closer to dismantling their empire. And with the U.S. ramping up its efforts, the pressure on Los Chapitos is higher than ever.
Across the city in their safe houses, gang members plan their next murders. These are two senior sicarios, hitmen, who run a base for hitmen. They warn this war is only just starting.
The larger picture here isn't just about Mini Lic. It's about a drug war that shows no signs of slowing down. It's about a cartel empire that's cracking under the weight of its own greed and betrayal. And it's about the thousands of lives on both sides of the border that are caught in the crossfire. Do you think Mini Lic's arrest could invite any significant violence in the cartel world? Feel free to share your thoughts with us in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more crime stories. Click on any of the cards on your screen right now to watch more of our videos.